For 15 years, Zainab never asked questions because Daniel always came back. He traveled often. Work, he said. And when he returned, life resumed exactly where it had paused. Nothing felt broken. Nothing felt missing. Groceries appeared. Bills were handled. Things that needed fixing were fixed. The house never lacked anything. Absence had a pattern, a beginning and an end. He left, and he returned. So Zainab learned not to measure time by days, but by his reappearance. Until this time, he didn't return. At first, it didn't feel serious. Trips sometimes stretched. Schedules changed. Network failed. There was always a reason. But silence began to settle into the house. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like something that didn't belong. Morning came and went. Afternoon passed. Evening settled, and Daniel was still absent. Zainab noticed small things: the sound of the gate that didn't open, the chair that stayed empty, the routines that waited. Daniel had traveled before, but he had never disappeared. So Zainab searched, not because she was suspicious, but because she needed direction. She wasn't looking for truth, she was looking for certainty. And that's when she found it, in the bedside drawer, a place she had opened 100 times before without ever needing to look deeper. Inside was a diary, ordinary, unimportant, until now. Between familiar pages was something unfamiliar, an address, neatly written, carefully placed, not random, not forgotten. It didn't accuse, it didn't confess, it didn't explain anything, but it existed, and its existence changed something. Something new had entered her world. The next day, she went. The house stood quietly, expensive, established, certain. Cars in the compound that didn't belong to visitors, but to people who stayed, people who returned, people who belonged. Nothing about it looked temporary. Nothing about it looked hidden. Everything looked lived in. Inside, daylight filled every room, open, unbothered, undisturbed, and the walls held memories, family photos, Daniel, with a woman Zainab had never seen, and older children, not posed, not recent, but lived, celebrated, grown, bright, joyful memories that did not include her. Zainab didn't ask questions. She didn't interrupt. She didn't react. She simply stood there, not in shock, not in anger, just noticing. And in that quiet moment, without confrontation, without explanation, realization began. Because the question was no longer, why didn't he come back? It was, how long had inside everything felt calm. The house wasn't heavy with secrets. It wasn't tense. It was lived in, warm, peaceful. Miriam stood across from her quietly, not guarded, not uncomfortable, just present. Zainab spoke carefully, not accusing, just asking, and Miriam listened, before answering gently. No defensiveness, no urgency to explain, only calm certainty. There was something about the way she spoke, like someone who wasn't afraid of the truth. Then, the phone, placed softly in Zainab's hand, not as proof, not as confrontation, just context. Around them, life continued. Two children passed through the space like they belonged there, comfortable, unbothered, at home. Zainab's eyes moved slowly across the room. Photos on the walls, smiles, birthdays, holidays, a life documented in moments. Then, the ceremony, a framed traditional marriage portrait, Daniel and Miriam, joyful, established, real. Zainab didn't react. She just stood there, looking, and in that stillness, something shifted. This wasn't chaos. It wasn't scandal. It wasn't even betrayal in the way she had imagined. It was something far more settled, far more rooted. By the time they sat down, there was no fight left in the room, only understanding beginning to take shape. No enemies, no raised voices, just two women sitting in the truth. When Zainab walked back outside, the sunlight felt the same, but everything else had changed. The house, the silence, the story. And for the first time, she realized this wasn't an interruption, it was a reality. The door opens. Daniel stands there. A month's gone, longer than ever before. He doesn't look like he's been away. He looks like he's coming home. Just not to the home where his children are sleeping upstairs. No, I'm back. No, how are the kids? He sees her face. She sees his eyes. And they both know the quiet is over. He sits at the table, the same one where homework is done, where she reads them stories. She stays on her feet. Her gaze drifts toward the stairs. The silence stretches. Then he speaks, like he's been carrying the words for years. It wasn't a secret, he says. Not really. Miriam wasn't someone he found later. She was first. His family, his other children. The life he built in another part of the city before he ever walked into Zainab's world. She knew about me, Zainab says quietly, nodding toward the stairs. It isn't a question. Daniel nods. I told her, he admits, from the start. Showed her photos once, years ago. And the phone, the one with no name saved, Miriam didn't find it by chance. She had seen Zainab once, at a community market across town. She knew her face, knew about the children. She was waiting for the day Zainab would come looking. The work trips, the late nights, always a few days, never more. But this time, the month he was gone. Miriam's mother had a stroke, he says. I went to help, but this time I couldn't leave again. Hospital runs, school drop-offs, keeping things steady. I stayed because I had to, and because for the first time, I couldn't pretend splitting myself in two was working. The weight hits him then, not just guilt, but exhaustion. Zainab doesn't flinch, doesn't raise her voice. She finally understands. This wasn't chaos, it was a life running parallel to hers. One she never knew existed, but one where other children call him dad every single day. And now she knows why this month was different. He had finally chosen, even if only for a while, and she wasn't the one he picked. She looks at him, calm, clear. How long was I meant to let our children live in the shadow of your truth? He has no answer, no words to fix what can't be mended. Not for the children in both homes, not for the two women who carried his secret. Zainab picks up her bag, pauses, listening to the steady breathing upstairs. Then she walks past him, out the door. The sun meets her, bright, warm, real. She isn't broken. She's finally seeing light, and she knows exactly what she has to protect.